Welcome back to the She Grows podcast. I'm Jen Matthews.
Hey, I'm Danielle Doss.
And we are in the second part of our Women in the Bible series.
Yeah.
And we're so excited to dig into this conversation with you. But before we get into it, we just want to say thank you for being here with us. Thank you for growing with us. Share this with somebody in your circle of friends because somebody needs to be growing alongside of you. So let's do that. Let's dig in, grab some coffee, grab an Alani, grab something, and let's dig into this conversation. Okay, Danielle, we are talking about another conversation about women today.
Yeah.
And this one's a little different because why?
Well, one, it's multiple women.
Yes.
We've got a band of sisters.
Band of sisters.
And two, we're not talking about circumcision. Phew.
True that.
Yeah. But it's cool because I love the idea that God does see his daughters individually. Mm-hmm. But here we're going to be talking about 5 sisters, not 4, 5 sisters that are in
5
the Old
sisters.
Testament. Yeah.
Yeah. And you brought this up a minute ago about how, so this is, we told you last week that this is year 3 of doing these Women in the Bible podcasts. Yeah. And we've seen you pulling up.
It's so cool.
The old episodes.
Yeah.
So know that there are 3 years worth of Women in the Bible podcasts.
Yeah.
And so it's usually, I think they're usually in February.
Yeah,
so
this is the first time that we've done it a little bit later, but yeah.
Yes. So that time of year for the past, this is year 3. So go dig into them. We've done some really great women, some really great stories. So go dig into some of those conversations because these are just really cool.
You know, it's one thing to just know about like the Marys and the Marthas and the Rahabs and, you know, all the like women that have like key prominent features. But there is something so beautiful about finding these little bitty like, and then seeing the impact of their life and genuinely how we are affected today because of these women that are thousands of years.
This one so specifically.
Yes.
It's really cool. So what's really neat about this story is that it kind of bookends the new generation in the wilderness. So we're getting to the point where the generation that doesn't get to go into the promised land has died off. And we start with a census. They're brought up. We talked about, so Numbers 26 is where we're starting.
Yeah.
And in verse 33, it's 26, it's literally labeled the census of the new generation. So we're talking about the new generation that's actually going to get to walk into the promised land. Old guys are dead. Here we are. And in verse 33, it says, now Zelophehad, the son of Heifer. Is that how you say that? That sounds so funny.
Anyways, it's not how we spell it. So I'm sure it's like a like there's a
I'm sure they don't say it this way, but it's spelled heifer, had no sons but daughters. And the names of the daughters of Zelophehad were Mala, Noah, Holga, Milcah, and Tirzah.
Yeah. I say Tirzah, but it probably
Tirzah.
It's probably not either way.
Tirzah.
Yeah, but still.
Yeah, whatever. Weird names. Yeah. But it's these 5 daughters. They're named in this census from the beginning. And then what we'll find as we talk through is that as Numbers ends, they're in the last chapter of Numbers as well. So it bookends.
How many times did you say that these daughters are mentioned?
They're mentioned like 5 times?
4 or 5, yeah.
Numbers 26, 27, 36, Joshua 17, and Chronicles 7.
Okay, so we are
3, 4, 5,
like deep into the numbers, basically like keeping up with this wilderness journey. They have just gone through and, like you said, done the census. We're talking about the different tribes right beforehand, and then bam, here are these.
And here's the
daughters. Yeah,
and we have to mention them because they're going to be significant.
Yeah, and it'll pick up in chapter 34.
27.
Yes. Why did I say that? Definitely that.
This one's lost her mind, but bear with us.
Did I say 34?
34.
Let's see what's over there.
I was going to say, what's in 34? Because they're in 36.
Chapter 27, yeah.
So here's where their significance comes. Do you want to read part of their story in 27 where they really, or
Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, I'll get it. So I'll start. It said in verse 1 of chapter 27. It says, one day a petition was presented by the daughters of Zelophehad. Their names, we won't go through that again. Their father was a descendant of Hefer, son of Gilead, son of Machir, son of Manasseh, son of Joseph. These women stood before Moses, Eleazar the priest, the tribal leaders, and the entire community of the entrance of tabernacle. That feels like it's a big meeting that's taken place. And they go on to say, our father died in the wilderness, they said. He was not amongst Korah's followers who rebelled against the Lord. He died because of his own sin, but he had no sons. And this is why they're there. They said, why should the name of our father disappear from the clan just because he had no sons? Give us the property along with the rest of our relatives. So do you want me to stop there and then we can go?
You can just, So Moses brought their case before the Lord.
Yeah.
And long story, the Lord's like, yeah, they're right, da-da-da. And so we're going to talk a lot about the implications of God saying, yeah, they're right.
Yes.
And puts law into place.
Yes.
For them.
I know the way that you breeze through that, I'm like, but the Lord said, first off, Moses didn't even dismiss it. You know, you've got 5 women that are coming to you.
Yeah.
And, there is a rule. It's the law. Like if the father dies, the land that is about to be in the promised land, because they're still in the wilderness, is going to be given away. And so these women are saying, hey, please don't let it die with our father. Like we belong as part of this tribe. So these women have gone against this huge council, and Moses takes it to the Lord. Like he doesn't dismiss it. He doesn't just say, no, this is the way it's going to be. This is how it is. This is how it will always be.
And nobody would have batted an eye if he did.
Sure.
He had the authority to say, no, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
Land has always passed down from father to son. And if there's no sons, gone to uncles, brothers, whatever. You know, like he was well within his right to say that.
Yeah.
And what I like about the story is that he didn't even go to another leader that would have said, no, we're going to uphold the status quo. He went to God.
Yeah.
He was like, you know what? They all know the same thing I know, so let's take it to God and see what he says. So he saw value in their request, which I think is big. And I mean, it kind of probably points to our last conversation where Moses recognized the role of women in his life so far.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean?
That too. Like, hey,
they had value for him.
Exactly. I thought about that. Like he's reflecting back and seeing the tenderness and also the boldness of which he was well accustomed to.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, sometimes I need to be listening into this. You know, it was custom for, we've talked about this a little bit, but how if there was not like a male line inheritance, that it would just be distributed to the rest of the tribe. So land was not just property. It was basically like this economic security that they had.
Yeah.
So losing land meant that they were losing this visible inheritance of the promised land. So when these daughters spoke up, that they weren't just asking for like the assets, but they were asking to remain, this is so big, to remain part of that covenant community. You know, we talked last week about the covenant of the people, because there is this like motion of circumcision, but this is the covenant like of the family, like this is the land that they are inheriting, because all of these years in the wilderness, and here it is, the promised land.
Yeah.
That they're fighting for that.
Well, and it speaks so much to how forward thinking they are.
Yes.
Because here's the truth. They were women, which meant eventually they were going to get married and they would be taken care of. They would have land because of their husband and his family. Right. They would marry into land regardless. So they weren't worried about their assets. They were literally thinking about their father's name for the future. And so, which I think is huge. And then even besides that, to me, like, they've been in the desert wandering around for so long, knowing that their father passed away without seeing the promised land because he was part of the generation that was like, you guys have sinned. You're not going to get to walk into this. And I always vision the people, because they were so unfaithful throughout the years, which I know was us, whatever, the Israelites, you know, it's always like these stories of like, and then they were unfaithful, and then God got mad, and then Moses intervened, and then it was, you know, so I'm like, they have to be like, this is never really going to happen, is it? Like, that's what I would be thinking. I'd be like, whatever.
No,
like
they had such a long game
exist.
mentality.
Yes.
Yeah.
To where they were thinking into, hey, this is coming. The promised land is real, and we're going to walk into it. Therefore, let's establish something before we even get there.
Yeah.
And came the boldness of 5 sisters to be like, hey, Moses and priest and tribal leaders and everyone else, we have a question.
Yeah. But you know what? Like, when I read this, and this is just Daniel's interpretation, I do not see any timidness whatsoever.
No.
They were clear in what they were requesting. They said, why should our father's name disappear from his clan because he had no son? Like, they were clear and they were bold. So, you know, that whole like, I'm going to just sit and be, but the Lord saw, you know what? They're right. They're right. And so the complete like trajectory of women's ownership of land changed because of these 5 women.
Yes. And it's like, not only were they coming against, not against, but they are questioning the land laws of Israel. Like, this is how land and things, inheritances in general, have been passed down forever. Not only were they questioning that, the land that would have gone to their father would have gone to their uncles, his brothers.
Yeah.
Since
And it
he
does
was
mention
dead.
uncles later on, which we would get into.
Yes.
Just so you have context.
And so, truthfully, when they went to Moses and questioned this and were trying to get this land for their own because, you know, to help with their father's name, they risked making their family angry. To go, well, why would you take this away from, like, this is ours. Like, traditionally, this land is ours now, and now it's going to be divided amongst you. Had Moses said no, just be quiet and go back to your tent, their uncles could have very well been like, you ain't coming back in my tent.
Yeah,
Go handle it. Like, you have just disrespected us. You've come against us. They were risking their family position.
And also on the other side of this tribe and this family, they've journeyed together, right? Knowing, hey, he had no sons, and these 5 women are about to be in a situation. And we're not reading about an intervention that the uncle is having on behalf of his nieces. Like, we're reading about the women that are having to step up and make this bold request.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it would, because naturally this land would have just gone to them, like you said. So,
Yeah.
So, and like, I think about the injustice of it, because I'm like, well, where were you, Uncle Steve? Like, you saw this coming.
Yeah.
You knew that it was this way.
But they probably just didn't even question because it was just how it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was just how it was. But these girls could see farther into the future. I mean, even centuries down the road, to go, hey, at one point, our father's name is not going to be anywhere. It's not going to be listed anymore, because as you record in numbers, in the census, and it's always going to be the male heads of households is where it trickles down through. And there's very few, we talked about this last week, there's very few women mentioned, but they're significant when they are mentioned. Like, if they're mentioned in a family lineup, in the genealogy or in a story, it's very significant to take note of that they're even there, because it's not done. Like, it's not every woman. And so the fact that, the fact that we know their names, they're referred to as the daughters of Zelophehad, but then they're named individually, which is cool, because listen to this. We don't know the name of Noah's wife or Lot's wife. We don't know the name of the Canaanite woman in Matthew 15 or the bleeding woman in Luke 8. We don't know the name of the woman at the well in John 4, but we're told 4 different times the names of every single one of these daughters. That is really cool. And their story takes up a good portion of this last little bit of numbers, like where they're talking about where everybody's
Yeah.
going to live.
You know, one thing that did kind of stand out to me in their appeal is that they did do it in an orderly way. There was this place of respect and honor that was before them, meaning that they just didn't get in there and act a fool and or even panic even because they recognize what is to come. They just said, you know what? And this, like that it's 5 sisters that stood unified together. You don't see one just saying, hey, I'm going to back away. Y'all got this.
Yeah.
Like this is on behalf of there's the security for the future in a degree, but also the honor of their own father and also like understanding that they are part of this covenant as well. Like they're not
Yeah.
backing down from that.
Yeah. Well, and, you know, talking about breaking through culture norms, even like I think it's just so cool because obviously when they brought this up, God wasn't like, oh, I've never thought of that before, you know, but like how he's going to reveal to us as needed.
Yeah.
If this was just thrown in the midst of how to handle a wound and what to do about pus, like, and all the disgusting things that come in the law. If they were like, oh, and also if a man has no, it would have just been like, do.
Sure.
But we were allowed, like this waited for their, like to be centered around a story and for people to discover it. And is Moses going to be faithful and bring the question? And it's just really cool the way it was revealed.
Yeah.
But that then it puts a new precedent in place for future generations, like you said. And when it's like breaking that ceiling of what's just always been and how God's just in the business of doing that.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know, when it comes to justice and equity and equality and God is always this, I don't know, the stories in the Bible are just so intentional about showing the just God's search for justice and to show to prove his heart for the equality of people.
Yeah, the fact that he is the king of the universe literally helped set these, like the laws are in motion. And yet we didn't have to stick to the tradition because he saw, you know what, they're right, let's fix this. And it still didn't change the law.
Yeah.
There was just an amendment to be able to make it fair for all. Yeah. And, you know, it was funny because you said a few things. I'm like, oh, I want to say that. Oh, I want to say that. I'm like back and forth on my notes here. But, you know, we highlight this a good bit, specifically whenever it comes to like God seeing his daughters. But this shows that God does listen to the women. And it's huge. And I cannot understand that enough, like understate that enough. Is that the right way to say that? Anyways. Overstate it? Overstate it.
Overstate.
But that God said, you know what, you're right. And let's make this right. That God, he publicly affirms women, that he protects women's inheritances, that he is just and he is not traditional, that he entrusts women with stewardship is huge. I mean, we are benefactors of that.
Yeah.
That he reveals his impartiality, like meaning, that he favors the righteousness of it. And that, I don't know, that's cool to think about that they are right. I had listened to a podcast that Lisa Harper had spoke. Actually, she said that she did her dissertation on this. And I was like, but how does Wayne get your hands on that? And she's the one that mentioned this, but I thought it was so interesting. So I did a little bit more research into like how we're affected current day because of it. And it was the late 19th century and onward that these daughters are plainly documented as just references to say, but would you consider the 5 daughters? And that so much so that it changed, it helped create this posture of change for women to vote in the United States.
Wow.
Like it was this scripture, it was this group of sisters that because of them they were able to say, would you consider the heart posture of God and making it right across the way?
Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that cool?
That is cool. Well, and I think it's like, it's wise to kind of look at the whole picture of how they did it too, because I don't remember if you mentioned this or if we just talked about it earlier, but how they came in order. Like there's no bit of them coming in hysterical or like, hey, that's not fair. Like there's no, but they come before high council, like Moses, the high priest, all the chiefs, and all the people. What was there, like 600,000 Israelites in this camp? I'm pretty sure.
Your guess is as good as mine.
I don't know. I can't remember. But that's a lot of people to come before, and they just present their case very clearly and with reason and not hysterical and not with emotion, but just this is the facts. And our father did not, he was not in the sinful group that got swallowed up and did it. He's never done anything like that. He just died because he was part of that generation and he had to go. Like they presented their case in order. And then later in scripture, when they come to actually divvying out all the land, they're like, hey, don't forget what God said.
Yeah.
It's us.
Yeah.
And to where I'm thinking a lot of people maybe would sit back and go, well, we did our due diligence and they forgot us in the end. And that sucks. And, but they come back and they're like, oh, don't forget. And then even a step further, is this what you're going to? In the end, where the men come back and have a question about it? Were you about to read?
Well, I was pulling it up just to have at the ready. But, you could kind of just envision like this law has now been amended and the chatter amongst the fellas.
Sure.
Like, oh, this is about to change a lot for everyone. And so, and they're worried because, hey, what if this sister marries into this tribe? So God hears that and says, okay, this is what we're going to do. Like there's this constant amendment, but they're like keeping it right all along. So he essentially says, hey, you're going to marry within your tribe and that land still stays in the whole clan.
Yeah. Because the clan was worried about if they married out that it would take the land with them and that their allotment would get smaller. And they were like, well, that was not God's design. So they have to marry within their clan. So it says they married cousins, which I guess this was
different times.
It's not now. But there's nothing in the text that points to them going, I don't want to do that. I want to marry whoever I want to. This is rightfully our land now. God said so, and so I want to do what I want. There was no bowing up. They understood the long game. They were there because of the long game, and they understood the long game of God's promise. And that was the way he was going to provide for each clan, his chosen people, And so there was no personal agenda of, but this guy over in the clan of Asher looks a lot better than these guys over here in Manasseh. Like there was none of that. They were like, okay. And so they went with boldness and received with humility.
Sure.
And walked in the law that was given.
And forever changed.
You
said something earlier before we were recording about the land allotment even in the New Testament.
Yeah, well, because we see women owning land. We see Martha owns land and hosts Jesus and all the things. Then we see Lydia owning land and hosting Paul and doing stuff on her land. And I think those are just two examples even in the New Testament of women owning land, and we're like, it started back here.
Yeah,
they could do that because
they weren't
back here,
and they weren't coming at it with a selfish lens.
Yeah,
there was a posture of humility along with the boldness to be able to ask the thing, but then because they were keeping it within its like it wasn't like, oh, this is mine, just like what you said. It's funny to think about. I got to keep with my clan. Like I can't. I mean, that would be an easy frustration.
Yeah.
Or maybe not. Maybe they were like, the creme de la creme.
Our clan's the best. I don't know. Like,
but still enough to have like, hey, we want to go about this the right way.
Yeah.
Like we want to make sure that I think at the end of the day, like we're still a part of this family. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like this is God's people.
Yeah.
They have endured the generations that have come up. And to say this on one side in the wilderness, knowing that they're looking for the long game of the promised land at the end, I think begs the question for us is what can we do here and now in a season of life that we're in that is going to help the long game for the generations to come.
Yeah. Yeah. I have that in my notes too.
Oh, do you?
I had this would be a good ending.
I did too.
Okay. That's so funny.
Yeah.
But it's true. Like And we talked about this last week. It plays into these stories so well of like having no clue the weight you're about to hold in history.
Sure.
Because you're just doing whatever. Like, I don't know if God put it on their heart or what was it that made them. There's no way that in all of history of all of time, they were the first daughters with no sons, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no way.
Yeah.
But for some reason, these are the ones that said, you know what, let's ask about this.
Yeah.
Let's have something to say about this.
Yeah.
And what the scripture says is not like we're going to make this allowance for them, but it says for all time, for daughters who receive because there are no sons, here's how it's going to go down. And so they changed stuff for history, and they had no idea that that's what they were doing in the moment. I do believe that they weren't going in it selfish. It was because inheritance was tied to, like, it was a family thing. It was a longevity thing. It was they weren't looking for assets as much as they were just respect, like their family to live on in the record books and have a place in the covenant, like you said. And but they had no idea that it was going to affect other families for the history of forever.
Well, and for that to be the very ending of the book of Numbers, where it says, these are the commands and regulations that the Lord gave the people of Israel through Moses while they were camped on the plains of Moab beside the Jordan River across from the Jericho. Like at the very end, right above that is where it talks about, oh, and by the way, remember, this is how we're going to make this right and fair.
Yeah.
And like they're included in the covenant.
An intentional.
Yes.
An intentional inclusion.
Yes.
And the writer, I mean, just the intentionality of that, like, hey, we're not going to forget this because we're going to bookend everything about the new generation is going to start and end with these daughters.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to me.
Yeah.
Because when you know that the scripture is God breathed, like it was God inspired, and it was like, there's nothing like that you can't overlook it. It was all intentional. It was very on purpose. And just to see how intentional, I don't know, to see how, from knowing their names to where, I don't know. I mean, this story could be very easily overlooked. This is a part of the Bible a lot of people skim because, my gosh, census and land allotments. I'm like, I don't know what any of these cities are. Like, I'm going to skim. Yeah. But this was this is where, and honestly, this kind of thing became important to me through doing the Bible recap with Tara Lee Cobble, because it would bring the cultural significance to a lot of the Old Testament and the books that I hated in the past. I'm like, just get me through all this to the New Testament. Yeah. And the first time I did the Bible recap was the first time I got to the New Testament and was sad that the Old Testament was gone. That. And I was like, how could I be sad that Jesus is here now? But it was like I was just discovering all the richness in the Hebrew stories.
I think it's so easy to think of Old Testament as like, this is God and he's going to smote and da-da-da-da-da. And like, there's the wrath, because there are a lot of different, like, we are on the other side of like being able to have the gift of Jesus' blood applied to our life. This is before. And so and it is very much rules, laws, sacrifices, you name it. But there's so much compassion that's woven in about God's character throughout the Old Testament that makes these, like, you see it, you can't miss it when you come across just a small little, like, glimpse in a book of Numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and what's cool is that even this story plays into partnership. Because while it's a story rewarding the boldness of the woman, like women, but, a woman's role being recognized, her point of view being given validation, being brought before God, being affirmed by God. Yeah. It could be a story about women, but in the same token, it's bringing so much comfort to a man who has no sons. Like any man in that moment right there that has no sons, and they're going, my family's going to die out. They suddenly have comfort to know that their story is going to change too, and they will be taken care of in the future. So it was like this it's a twofold blessing still.
Yeah.
I don't think there's ever a story in the scripture that's like, and this is why men are so much cooler, or this is why women are so much cooler. But it's like everything God does is like, no, we're going to bring justice and equity. And I just think it's really powerful when you can recognize the full scope of the tiniest little story buried in the history. But
that's so true. Is it what does Christy McLean? It's mitzvah and Zedekiah. Is that am I say it? But it's the justice and righteousness. Like he's just bringing that to the forefront. I think. What is it? It's been
now
so
I'm going to
long.
go crazy.
It's been so
Zedekiah
long.
is the second word, but
Christy,
I don't
tell
know.
us.
We have to look it up.
Call us and let us
But
know.
yeah, that justice and
and righteousness, I believe.
Maybe.
Anyways, that's go do the deep dive. But
it's bringing them from shame to not shame.
Yeah. But
why would you bring this up where I couldn't look? Anyways,
I think that's what it is, but it's probably not. So who knows? But it's
something like that.
But it is that. Gosh, I never even considered about the piece of future families, specifically for men.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow,
the comfort it brings them,
that's a good
and
thought.
the same token.
Yeah. So
That's good.
do you have any other thoughts about these old sissies? Not sissies, sisters.
Sister kind of
Sisters.
sissies, not those kind of sissies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think there's a lot to soak in with this one, even though there's not a lot of information, but it's just taking in kind of the same principles of the last story of like, hey, when God has spoken to you, speak up in your boldness, but do it with a cool head and a calm demeanor to say, hey, this is what God has spoken, and I'm not going to come at anybody in an irrational fashion, in an overly emotionally charged, but speak the things God has put on your heart because you don't know what you're holding for future generations.
Yeah, that's so good.
And it's that thing of like, I'll say the exact same thing I said last week. Like your actions, your following what God has put in your life could be the answer to somebody else's prayer that they've not even known to pray yet.
Yeah.
Or maybe that they have been praying for a long time. Right. Some other daughter was in the same position and was too scared to say it. You know what I mean? Like there's just no way it was just them.
Yeah.
And so what are we doing today that the generations behind us get to stand on our shoulders?
Sure.
Like where are we holding them up? And I think that's where the story really comes into play. Like it could look so insignificant. They knew it wasn't insignificant, but they didn't know how far reaching it would be.
Yeah. Huge impact, but so far reaching.
Yeah.
That even as we sit and live today, that we're impacted because of their boldness.
Yeah. I will say I will say one more thing that stood out to me. And I was going to just let this go, but I'm like, you know what? This is somebody's story right now because the oldest daughter.
I was hoping that you were going to say that.
The oldest daughter's name, they named people very specifically back then with a lot of meaning, a lot of like, there's some reason they were called, even if it was terrible. Like, what was that? The prayer Jabez, he was named that because he was born out of suffering and turmoil. It was awful. Yeah. So your name is awful, suffer. Like, even if it was terrible.
They really spoke. Whenever it was in a bad moment.
Yes. So they were named for some reason. Yeah. And the oldest daughter, Mala's name means weak one. And it suggested physical frailty or vulnerability. And so she wasn't named that for no reason.
Sure.
And so whether she was just sickly, whether she was just tiny framed and about to break, I don't know what, but they pointed out when I was reading about it, the fact that she lived to adulthood means that she was probably cared for very well by her parents, which their mothers never mentioned. So I don't know when she passed or what the deal was, but how maybe that played into her valuing her father so much. Maybe he cared for her so much to where she lived past the weakness to where this is speculation. It's not biblical, but
still,
maybe it's very, they were very
still be
specific.
Applicable even here and now for the person that you were thinking through.
Yes. So the thing is, maybe that came into why there was so much value in her mind about like, let's take care of our father's name. But the fact that it's the tension between her position and her condition, her position and her condition made her achievement so much more remarkable because she had been spoken over. Like she knew this growing up. I'm the weak one. I'm frail. I'm vulnerable. I require extra care. And I'm the oldest of these 5 sisters.
I'm responsible.
And now my father's gone and I'm responsible. Yeah. And so I want whatever's been spoken over you that would hold you back and make me say, I can't stand up in this moment. I'm the weak one. What am I supposed to do? It doesn't have any bearing on what you literally can do. Like if God has spoken to you that, hey, this is the thing. Hey, we're supposed to speak up for our Father in this moment. We're supposed to do the thing. God is in the business of coming through for the underdog, for the marginalized, for the subordinate, for the whatever. Like he is in the business of coming through. So don't let what someone else has spoken over you, or even besides that, what actually has been your story so far. Don't let that hold you back from doing what God's put on your life, because he's in the business of showing up. He's in the business of going, I did speak that to you. And since you're going to walk in obedience and since you're going to say yes to what I've called you to, I'm going to show up and we're going to show out and we're going to make this happen.
And also, if it is the charge of your life that you are raising someone that you recognize that is going to have to overcome in a lot of different ways, that it is your empowerment and the entrustment that God's given you to be able to speak that life, because she did have this boldness. And something tells me, again, speculation, not sure,
but still,
but there's something to be said about a parent just speaking life and saying, nope, you are not this. This is what you have the capability to be able to do. And what a gift to be able to see that through the fruit of how she just did it. I'm glad that you said that. That's good.
So good.
Yeah.